Well, it seems no spring is complete without the Toronto Maple Leafs breaking the hearts of their many fans in Southern Ontario and really right across the country.
Jones for Greer, kicked away, rebound, in front, scores! Jonah Gadjevich, 3-0 Panthers.
Florida scored 3 goals 6 minutes apart in the second period to break the game wide open. Game 7, of course, they would go on to win 6-1, and they're off to the Eastern Conference Final. Some fans showed their anger by tossing Maple Leafs jerseys on the ice during the games. Some others are taking it to more extreme levels.
I'm done with this team. So done with this team. Here's a double jersey burn. I'm so sick of this team. No heart. The heartless team. The most heartless team in the NHL. Bye-bye.
So after this latest crushing defeat, what's next for this team and their fans? Joining us to discuss that is Bruce Arthur, columnist for the Toronto Star. I know, Bruce, that reporters in particular, but columnists as well, I'm sure, are supposed to be journalists, not fans. But how did you feel after that 6-1 loss yesterday?
Well, I'm a Vancouver native, so I have no rooting interest in the Toronto Maple Leafs, but I've seen this before, Ian. This team has been in the playoffs the last 9 years, which for the Toronto Maple Leafs is actually a really long period of success. And in that time, they've lost a Game 7 in 2018, a Game 7 in 2019, a deciding Game 5 in 2020, a Game 7 after leading 3-1 in 2021, a Game 7 in 2022, lost in the second round to Florida in 2023, and lost a Game 7 last year. This year, they finally had a Game 7 at home. This was the first time they'd have a home Game 7 with fans in the stands. The two they had during the pandemic, there was obviously no fans in the stands. And this was in the history of really what is a remarkable period of successful failure for any NHL franchise. This was probably the worst of all of them, not just the Game 7 on Sunday night, but the Game 5 on Wednesday last week. They were almost the same game with the same final score.
Yeah, and you look at the roster, and for those who are watching who aren't hockey fans, bear with me for a sec. Austin Matthews, quite possibly the greatest goal scorer of his generation, you know, in people in their 20s. Mitch Marner, just a fantastic creative forward who played a huge role when Canada won at the Four Nations Cup. In fact, I think he passed the puck to Connor McDavid, who scored the winning goal. William Nylander, you know, stylish, fantastic scorer in his own right, and John Tavares, who was the team captain up until last year. The core four, how do you have players like that who have done so well in the regular season fall so far short in the playoffs?
Well, I mean, the thing is, in hockey, small sample size, you can't always tell. This is now a large sample size. These guys have not delivered in the games that have mattered most over the last 9 years. And really, this kind of takes us back 2 years. 2 years ago, when Kyle Dubas was the general manager of this team, they lost to Florida in the second round. They finally got out of the first round, lost to Florida really badly in the second round. And he finally signaled a willingness to break those core four apart. That had been a kind of something that had not been considered in the franchise because when you have this much talent, usually in the NHL, you let them grow and they learn to win is the idea. This team hasn't learned to win. And in 2023, the problem is once Kyle Dubas expressed a willingness to change things, him and team president Brendan Shanahan were at odds. It broke up. Kyle Dubas left. Brad Treliving is now the general manager. And the window to change this core easily snapped shut. They had no move contracts, no trade lists, all of that. And so now what you have is a Toronto Maple Leafs team that has tried the same thing for 9 straight years with these 4 high-priced forwards. And every year, they have found a new and interesting way to make their fans feel terrible. So now it's probably going to change. It's finally probably going to change, but not in a way that will be advantageous, you would guess, or at least it'll be difficult to be advantageous for the Leafs.
So they've changed the general manager, they've changed the coach, they changed the team captain. What is likely to change now?
Well, what is really the biggest domino, there's 2 really. One is, does team president Brendan Shanahan come back? He has been the architect of this entire era for the Leafs, has done a lot of good things, has re-professionalized the franchise, I would argue. But the results is 2 playoff series wins in 9 years with an incredibly talented roster. His contract is up, and if he leaves, then the architecture and the direction of the franchise might change. And then it's Mitch Marner, who is not only a free agent, and has not only taken a disproportionate, I would say, amount of the blame for the failures of the last 9 years, and who is known as one of the more criticism aware players, I would say, in the NHL. He is a free agent. So is John Tavares, but Tavares wants to come back. Marner has not said he wants to come back. Marner did not negotiate during the year and did not accept a deal during the year. And now with the salary cap finally going up across the league, Mitch Marner is going to be the number one free agent in hockey. And he can choose whether or not he wants to lash himself back to this very painful wheel or go and play with almost any franchise that wants him. So that would inextricably alter, one, the core four of the Toronto Maple Leafs, but also how they play, how their salary structure works. It basically would be the end of an era in a way.
One last thing. I mean, we showed a little bit of the social media images, and I think there's a lot of this around. But in this case, somebody burning a couple of Leafs jerseys. Not an inexpensive gesture, by the way. That probably cost him $400 or $500 for those two jerseys together. But it feels to me like Leaf fans, you know, they may be unhappy today, but in October, they're going to be showing up and paying top price for tickets. Do you think that's going to change? Do you think we're at a point now where the Leafs are actually, the team is going to see fans staying away?
I don't think that's possible in Toronto. There's too much money. There's too much fandom. It runs too deep. But I will say this. During the era before Brendan Shanahan, things got really bad. The team was incredibly mismanaged, and it kind of culminated in not only jerseys being thrown on the ice, but if you remember waffles, that was the low water mark for the franchise, essentially. And it is astonishing that after the longest consecutive playoff streak in franchise history since the 1960s, since 67, that this team has frustrated its fans so much that during a Game 7, fans were throwing jerseys again on the ice. I don't think fans will stay away. But I think if you're the front office, I think if you're the ownership of the Toronto Maple Leafs, you realize you have pushed this fan base further than is probably reasonable. And there is an incredible amount of anger, frustration, and I would say depression in Toronto Maple Leafs land.
Well, you said at the beginning you're from Vancouver. You don't have a rooting interest in Toronto. You can dispassionately assess the Maple Leafs, which you've done. But you know what? We're going to hold you accountable on the Canucks another time. We'll have to get back in touch with you and ask you about that team. But Bruce, thank you very much for this.
My pleasure, Ian.